Hi, my name is William Beam from Suburbia Press, and I've had a few videos recently where I've talked about Fluent Community, a rather new community WordPress plugin from WP Manage Ninja, and also talking about my own community that I set up, the Suburbia Press community. I wanted to go and give a little bit of a behind-the-scenes tour or look, not so much showing you what the site is like, but things that I wish I knew when I was starting this up. And that's because I've had some questions and there's been some dialogue going on inside of the community about other people who want to start up their community using Fluent Community. And even if they're not using that, there are still some other things that I've learned along the way that I wanted to share. So what I'm going to do is inside of the community, I'm going to create a course. And as I come up with new lessons, I'm going to put it in there. This is kind of like the kickoff video. So I'm going to invite you, if you want to join the Suburbia Press community. It's hub.suburbiapress.com. And of course, I'll have a link inside. Right now, it is a $10 one-time fee. You get access for lifetime. And later on, that'll go to a monthly fee. But for right now, we're new. We've got about 55, 56 members inside. So I'm hoping that a few other folks will want to join in and take a look. And I'm going to basically show you what mistakes I made, what screw-ups I made, what things I didn't know. And hopefully, if you're going to be starting up your own community using Fluent Community, this will help you avoid some of those mistakes. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look inside. All right, one of the first things that you really want to do is think about what you're going to put inside of your community. What's it going to be about? That's kind of obvious, I would imagine. And you may not have a good idea yet. One of the things I did was get some general notions of what I wanted and went to ChatGPT and said, give me some ideas for some discussion spaces. I already had courses that were on another platform that I've moved over here, but I didn't have discussion spaces on that. So I probably went overboard on discussion spaces, but that was something you want to do. And you may want to start off smaller than I did. You may want to have only a few discussion spaces. It's a lot easier to grow discussion spaces and add more than it is to retract. So if we take a look at my discussion spaces, you can see I've got several of them over here. And they're categorized, so I've been over this before. I won't rehash this too much. And you can expand and collapse them to see what they are. But the whole idea was I wanted to cover the gamut, kind of for people who are operating WordPress, because it is either a passionate hobby or a business or some kind of need for them. So I'm thinking mostly of small entrepreneurs, mid-sized entrepreneurs that are going to be doing something like this. So your discussion spaces, give some thought to how many you're going to have, categorize them with these, they're called groups in Fluent Community. So this bold over here is a group, and then the spaces are these discussion areas inside. One of the first ones I forgot was this general area, what doesn't fit anywhere else. So you probably want to have something that is general or all-purpose, whatever you want to call the space. And that's kind of where I'm looking at having under the community and showcase. So I figured, well, general is part of the community. So you can move these around back and forth, but once they're in place, you probably don't want to move them too much because that'll just be confusing for folks. When you first install Fluent Community, you can see I've got it down here. It's a WordPress plugin. And if you get the Pro version, then that adds another plugin. You're going to want at least a couple of other things. So FluentAuth, I'm going to show you this. This is a security plugin, and it really ties in with Fluent Community. And you can see that I've got, the last 7 days, I'm looking at recent failed and blocked logins, how many failures did I have, nobody was blocked, how many successful logins. And then you can take a look at the logs and you can see, who's been logging in. And you can categorize it by failed and blocked and successful. If I look at blocked, fortunately, it's only me when I was testing this out. So I had, different IDs the same two IDs that I used to try and test things out and make certain that I was blocked. If you come over to the settings, there are a couple of things that they put in place. So disable XML RPC, disable app login. In other words, disable the bots from programmatically trying to log in, and also disable the REST endpoint for WP users. So those are things, just check a box, you can do it. You can do a minor login security, and what this does was it will limit the number of, per IP address, the limit of login tries that you get. So in deferred minutes. So I said 5 tries within 30 minutes. And then you can limit the login try in minutes for 30. So if your users fail 5 times in 30 minutes, the system will block them for 30 minutes. But I don't have this enabled for my site right now. You can have it send you email notifications if there are certain categories of people that you want to know. Like for a subscriber, you may not want email notifications every time someone from your community logs in. But these folks that have more authority, particularly an administrator, you may want to know when they log in. And this is a WordPress default, for the admin email, it'll send it to that account. If a user gets blocked, I've got this checked. I want to know if somebody gets blocked, and that way I can try to reach out and help them. And this says automatically delete logs older than how many days. So if you don't want to delete them, you can put in 0. But I said 30 days. That's right now I find that enough. And then I want a digest report every Tuesday. So like, are people having problems logging in or not? This down here, disable admin bar and /WP admin access for selected user roles. Well, right now I'm only putting that for subscriber. I want to have this admin bar up here for myself as an administrator and anybody else I've got as an administrator, but it's really only subscribers that are logging in as community members. So you can do that. They have a social login, which I've not enabled. There's only 2 things. You can log in with GitHub settings. I kind of get that. I mean, this is created by developers. They use GitHub all the time. And if you've got a GitHub account, then that can be your GitHub login. And also Google. So if you want to allow people to log in with Google, then they can do that as well. And of course, they've got a couple of ways. You can do it by a database, but also your WP config file, which you notice they'll put in recommended in certain places. This is the way to do it. But I haven't done that. It's not something that interests me right now. Nothing against it. I just didn't want to do that. Also, another reason I didn't want to do that, let me back up a little bit. We're going to get to with a registration page. I don't necessarily want someone logging in with Google accounts when I've got a custom registration page for them. And that's because I'm charging. If you're not charging, then you may want to go ahead and enable these. I don't know if they're going to have other social logins, like Facebook is a common one. Twitter X is another common one. So maybe that'll come in the future. I don't know. All right, so for login forms, if you're going to create a custom login or sign-up sheet, in other words, you're going to create a WordPress page, there are shortcodes here. So you can just highlight this and put that in the page, and when it displays, this one will show the full authentication. So it'll show the login form, the registration form, and a password reset form. You can also have pages or areas that limit it. So there's just the sign-up. There is just the login form shortcode. And you can see that if you want to redirect them to a customized URL, then you can use these shortcodes over here. And of course, the magic login form, that's where the system sends you an email, you click the link, and then it will take you and you'll be logged in automatically. Another one we have is login redirects. So the default login redirect, well, once you log in, I'm going to have you redirected to this URL, which is inside of the community. So if you go to hub.suburbiapress.com/community, and then it's got this little piece over here, you can do that. When they log out, I just take you back to my hub. You can add new rules if you want to, by user role or capability, and whichever role they're in, and then you can change whatever their login and log out, redirect is going to be. That's one of the things. What I wanted was to come up with a custom registration. So let me show you in Fluent Community. We're going to go into portal settings. Okay, now that we're inside of the portal settings, you can see that I've done a couple of things. I have set access to only logged in users. In other words, if you're just browsing along, you will not see what's going on inside the community. You have to log in. In order to log in on my community, you have to pay. By default, you don't have to pay for access to log in and register on Fluent Community. This is something I've done that's a little bit different, and that's what caused me some of my problems. So there's the redirect URL that I told you about. And then you come in here, the login sign-up form. So you can use the default, which they give you the URLs, and this is where it came from right here. That same thing that I see up here comes from this because it's working with FluentAuth. And then I had a custom sign-up page, which is just a WordPress page called Register. So if you want to use a custom login page, you could do that, but I'm just using the default because I really like the way they set things up. If you want to customize this, you can come in here and you'll see up at the top, log in and sign up. So this is what the default looks like. There's nothing here really. I added this graphic and I put in, it's like my own logo in my welcome message. You get the chance to do the same thing. You just click on banner and the edit icon, and then it'll place, there's your logo, there's your title and your description. Also for the design, I added this background image, or you can choose a background color. The other side is the form, which over here is the default, is your email address and your password. Now, notice that I've got people logging in by email address, which is the default. I've had a few people log in with the username, and that's caused some problems, which I'm going to show you back in the Fluent logs. The sign-up form by default is kind of the same thing. You can, once again, you can put in a banner, and this can be a different banner if you want to. And you put in their full name, email address, the username, which happens inside. Like if you want to comment to somebody at whatever their username is, you can do that. You put in their password, you have a link to agree to your community agreement, your terms of service, whatever it may be, and sign up. By default, without any payment, it can go ahead and give you a registration. But I wanted to have a paid community. And like I said, for $10 for lifetime access, it's not expensive. But to do that, I had to create a default login sign-up form. So to do that, I used Fluent Forms. So let me go back and take you into WordPress. We'll go to Fluent Forms, and I had to use Fluent Forms Pro so I could handle the payments. A couple of things. You'll see payments here, and you're going to see global settings. So I'm going to go into global settings. You want to go into your payment settings and just make certain that you've got everything here. It's like if you got a business logo, that's fine. Whichever currency, I'm United States, so US dollars. And then you have to set up a couple of pages for people to see their receipts. So there's a receipt page, and they give you a short code right here that you just put in there. And then if they're on a subscription, for example, they need a place to manage their payments. Like if they want to cancel, or if they want to, maybe you have tiers, you want to move up to another level, you just take this short code and you put it in a payment management page. So that's easy to do. Create a page, put it in a short code, and there you go. For your payment settings, you have options for Stripe, PayPal, Molly, Razorpay, and on down the line. And there's a test one here that doesn't do anything with any of these services. Also, you have, at least within Stripe, that's the only one I've activated, a test mode and a live mode. This is for all of the forms inside. So if you switch this to test mode, it breaks the live mode. I found that out the hard way. So when I first opened up, people were getting API errors because I didn't realize that I'd broken my live mode, even though I had it working before. And that's something to keep in mind. It's not done by individual form, like maybe you want to have a charge for this and a charge for that, and you want to test it out. Well, when you test it, unfortunately with Fluent Forms, you're always in test mode or you're always in live mode. If you're doing recurring payments, there are some things that you need to put inside of Stripe. So Fluent Forms will give you a webhook for your form, and then you need to add these little things inside of Stripe. The documentation they provide here does a great job of showing exactly where to put it in. And it'll tell you where to put in the, the webhook. And if we go to my account dashboard, so I've got my hub, Suburbia Press, right here. It's active. That's working for me just fine. If I wanted to look at my events, I can see what happened, where there's payments and so forth. But when you do these webhooks, when you add one, you'll see this place where you select events. And there's tons and tons of them in here, and you don't necessarily know which ones to look at. So what you want to do is copy and paste some of those events that they showed you. So let me get one. So I'm going to copy this one, charge succeeded. I'm going to come over here and then just paste it in, and it'll find it. You just click this. And notice that as you add the events, it'll start adding it to the code over here. You don't have to worry about writing the code. It's going to put everything for you. So you go back and you do this over and over for those events that they've told you about. And then this endpoint URL, well, that's where you're going to put the webhook that they provided to you. So adding this on Stripe is really pretty easy. So like I said, there's the endpoint. All you do is paste that in. Here are the various webhooks to enable the webhook events that it's going to be listening for. You put these things in here. And then you click Save. You can do this for test mode. You can do it for live mode. Remember what I said. If you switch between the two, you basically screw up the one that you are working with. So that's the general settings. When I come over to my forms, as I mentioned, because I wanted to have payments, I needed to have a custom registration form. So I just call it Hub Registration Form. And this is my Fluent form. So I've got my first name and last name, email, username, and this is, the name they want to register, and then password, the password that they want to have. And I just put down here, here's what the price is, and they can agree to the community agreement, the terms of use, and privacy policy. This is something else that I'm probably going a little overboard here. If you notice on the default, there was a link for only one place, and I put the community agreement in there. If I want to have them agree to all of these, each one of these will link to a page where they've got the site, privacy policy, terms of use, and community agreement. It's there. Now, most people will just check this box saying they read it and probably never have, but that's okay. But it's recorded every time somebody does this that they did it. And then I've got this over here, and then, the only payment option I have is to pay with Stripe. So this is where I can just put in my input fields, the payment method, and, default credit debit card, $10 is what I'm doing. Obviously, this can be required. And then this field is required. You're going to find that you may overlook some required fields. If you're looking through and you see a red asterisk, that tells you that it's a required field. On the name field, this is just one block. And I was looking over, like, where in the world is the thing to make this required? Well, it's really by the various first name and last name. So you've got to drop down these little settings over here to make it required or not. So first name is required, last name is required. Even though it's one field, the first name and last name, or even middle name, if you wanted to do that, you have to check those to be required if that's what you want. Email, username. So that's all fun stuff. Very easy to put this together. And then, of course, I embed that in a WordPress page. Now, I'm going to go ahead and leave because I didn't really make any changes. What you want to do is make a confirmation setting. So this is going to be a notice to the folks that when they've registered, that they get a confirmation notice. You can put in whatever you want to. This is the URL that you're going to send them to, custom URL. You could send them to a page, which I probably could have done as well too. That's all right. Now, what I wanted to talk about were the places where I configure the integrations. I have FluentCRM, FluentCommunity, of course, and then this is a WordPress user registration. Even if you don't use FluentCRM Pro for your email, get the free version because it will have automations, and we're going to walk through an automation here. And that makes it easier to onboard people. So you can use the free version without paying for it. You don't have to use that for your email. I do, but that's a choice if you've got it or not. But I would still get Fluent CRM. And of course, this is Fluent Forms. And here's a quick look. So when I've got somebody, because I'm using it for my email, I want them joining the list that I have for all subscribers. And I can change this if I want to. I've also got a broadcast list, so you can just give them a default list. Now, I'm going to leave this at all subscribers because I'm going to add them to more lists later on in the automation. You're going to map the fields. In other words, the email address will be for the form field email. And then you've got these different names over here. So you'll see them. You don't have to remember what the code is. You just look for a first name, last name, and full name, name over here. That's all I'm adding. And then I'm giving them a tag. This is an access tag, which means that for the access management part of the community, they will be able to have access. So that's kind of like my first part of onboarding is right now within the form. This is going to register them. It's going to add them to my Fluent CRM. And we're going to go back. So when they come over here to Fluent Community, I'm going to enroll them in a couple of spaces. So every space that you have, you can join if you're new and you're not in it and it's public or available to you. But you can make certain they have access by putting it right in here. So these are the various spaces that I have. But I figured start here, hello, and you know what? I should probably find that one that says general and add that in here. So I'm going to save this feed. So add the general feed. And the email address from the form is just email. That's what they need to be able to log in. Then again, I've got my name, full name, only for new users, and their password only for new users. So that way, if the name and password is available, they'll go ahead and get that. And a couple of checkboxes allow the user to log in automatically after form submission and send the default WordPress welcome email. I want them to get the WordPress welcome email. It's going to have some links so that they can save that and get their username, the login URL, and all that other stuff. So I don't think I made any change. Well, I made that change, but we're coming back to that. So let's go back and take a look at one more thing. And this is user registration for WordPress. I need to make an account for them. So I've got the service is just user registration, and this is going to put them into WordPress. Now, there are a couple of ways I could have done this. I could have done an automation in Fluent CRM, but I thought, you know what? Why not just do it with Fluent Forms? It'll all at once, it will go ahead and make certain that there's no delay in waiting for something else to provision their account. So I can integrate with WordPress from Fluent Forms. Why not just do it right there? So it's got their email address, the username that they want, and as long as it doesn't exist already, they'll get it. And then the default role is a subscriber. You can add other meta keys and meta values if you have them. I don't. You can allow the user to log in automatically after registration. Again, that's kind of another setting we've seen. Send default WordPress welcome, and do not submit the form if the user already exists. So in other words, if the user is already in there and it's looking at the email address as a unique identifier, they're going to get a message that this account already exists. So in that case, they need a password reset rather than to register. That is mostly what I needed to do. If you come over back to my payment settings, I'm using this per the global settings. And I could come up with some custom Stripe credentials, but this is where I warned you. If you use these global settings, well, then if you change it for the global settings back to live, any of the forms that are using the global settings are going to have a problem. All right, so a payment receipt, that's going to go to the page that I told you about earlier. Do you want to disable it? No, I don't. And then that's really all I needed to do here. You can do this instead of building a WordPress page. You could create a landing page in Fluent Forms. It will automatically generate one for you. And it looks kind of like this. Not exciting, but it's functional. I didn't want to do that, or I didn't want to use this because it didn't have the integrated look and feel with the default user login and registration. So I wanted to make certain I had that. So that's why Fluent Forms, and if you're going to accept payment, Fluent Forms Pro is something to look at. All right, so I've got a couple other things. I said we will look at automation. So on Fluent CRM, I've got the Pro version. Let's look at automations. So here we go with a new hub registration. And this is really pretty simple. So this gets kicked off when a tag gets applied. So not when a tag gets applied, when there's a new registration on this form. So if somebody fills out the form, that's what kicks off this whole automation. I send a custom email. So this is my welcome message to them. I tell them to save this URL and that let them know they're going to be able to contact, support at Suburbia Press. If there's any problems, we'll take care of it. If there's any way that they can't log in, let them know they're going to receive an email shortly with instructions to set your password and log in. So all that's good. And this is where you start your onboarding process. What communication do they get once they've signed in, particularly if they've paid for registration? All All right, so I'm applying a tag and access Suburbia Press community. You can have multiple access tags. I'll show you that in a moment, but that tag is what maps them to the various spaces and courses to see if they can get inside or not. Now, you can set it up without any access tags. And when I first started, I did that. But I decided in case somebody ever does manage to log into my WordPress, I still don't want them to have access to the community unless they've gone through the payment. Well, to go through the payment, they have to go through this registration form and they have to go pay through Stripe. That's my little logic. So somebody could watch, how to get in, log in, but they're not going to get access to the community without having paid. Then I apply a list. So I want them on all subscribers and broadcast list. If I come up with other lists that I need to, I can just simply add that over here. And then I just end the funnel. It's really that simple. This is all you need to start doing automations inside of your Fluent community, as long as you've got the integration with FluentCRM. There are a couple of other products that I've got here, Fluent Boards and Fluent Support. I'll show you that in a moment, but I wanted to bring up one more thing. This one called Fluent Snippets. I had a problem with the redirect by default when I was going through my registration page, and it was not going back to where I wanted them to go. In other words, it's going to the WordPress login page that you would typically see rather than to my login page. One of the developers at WP Managed Ninja wrote this code, and for these various actions, logout, lost password, reset password, and so forth, they're going to go back to the community login. And that's all it is. It's redirecting the login from default of WordPress to the one that I want to have. You may want to get Fluent Snippets. It is free. And if you're going to do something like I did, where you want to make sure you control that they can only log in through your login page, that's what this little piece of code does. I will get the GitHub link for this and put it in the comments beneath this. All right, there's a couple of other things. There's a plugin called Better Messages. By default, there is a plugin that comes with Fluent Community. I think it was called Fluent Chat. I think now they've changed it to Fluent Messages. Let me see if it's on it. Yeah, Fluent Messaging. So you get a chat plugin by default. This one from Better Messages gives you a lot more options, and it integrates in Fluent Community. So it works just fine. I like it very much. There are some notifications. It gives the audience a chance to do some other things that they may want to do. If they want to have some restrictions on people, if they want to have their notifications, it just has a few more options. Now, that's not to say that at some point WP Managed Ninja may add some improvements to theirs, but I'm really liking this. They have a paid version, but I didn't feel that was necessary for my community. So the free version of Better Messages, I think, is a good product to have. Down here is something called FCE Fixes. There's a guy in the community. He's got a website called FluentCommunityAddons.com, and he's got this little plugin. So if you want to change by default, if you like something, they've got a heart. Well, if you want to make it a thumbs up, they can click this. A reaction color, you can add that. All these little things you can do. I mean, even this one, as simple as aligning a welcome banner with buttons, close viewer on an outside click. All this stuff is available. If you need to put in some custom code, you can do that. So you can see I haven't done anything on this just yet, but this is a handy little thing. I'm still testing this out on one of my test sites. All right, let's go back. I mentioned I was going to show you Fluent Boards and Fluent Support. Well, let's go back inside of my community. So I've got Fluent Support, and right here. Now, since I'm an administrator, I can't see it, but for the people who are not logged in, this is where they can go and submit a support ticket. If they've got a problem, they need to reach me, they can do that. Or as I sent them in the email, there's an email address, because if you can't log in and get to this, then you still need a way to go ahead and send that. Also, I've got this one called Better Docs that we just took a look at, Better Messaging. So I've got Better Docs. and I'm starting some, documentation and knowledge base articles. I got a slight bug here. I've got to figure out. This is supposed to have a search bar here so you can type in what you're looking for and it'll narrow down the list of which of these documents comes up. So I've got to figure that out as to why it's not showing. When this was showing on a page outside of this Fluent Community framework, it worked just fine. Inside, for some reason, it doesn't. Now, Better Docs is not a WP Managed Ninja product, but they do integrate with it, and it integrates with Fluent Support. So that's one of the reasons, like if you're going to put in a support ticket, one of the things you can do before you put in a ticket is use that search bar to find out, is there already an article that tells you how to get around this problem? So still a little bit of debugging there. Now I want to show you something on a different site. This is the WP Managed Ninja community, and they have these things called roadmaps. Well, roadmaps are a subset of Fluent boards, and basically they've put the page here where you can go to whatever roadmap you want to, and it just looks like this. So you can see ideas that people have submitted. If you want to, you can click on Submit Idea. And then as it moves from one stage to the next, so as it's submitted, these are the ideas that are currently under, consideration. And as you see an idea in here, if you like it, you can click it and upvote it. So H5P integration. This is something that's useful to people who are doing courses that need to have that. And web push notifications. If you like it, you can go ahead and click this. Integration with LearnDash. Mood boards. Oh, there's a new one for me. All right, so don't let me get in the weeds. You can see that they're under consideration. And if you like it, crop and reposition profile and images. All right, I like that one. So I just upvoted that so that the people who are managing the board can see what's been voted up. What do the people want? You can see what's planned. So quizzes in Fluent Community. Again, quizzes. So you'd probably look for a way to combine these. This is one of my favorites, an event calendar. I think that's something that's going to be coming at some point. Fluent Booking is not going to be an event calendar, but they may come up with a different event calendar for this. And then you can see what's been launched. So compatibility with Bricks Builder, Elementor Page Builder. All of this happened when they came out with an update to Fluent Community to allow you to change the page template for the WordPress pages, which is why they're showing up inside. So you can see how this is showing inside of this framework here with my column and my header. Well, the way that works is if I edit this page, you'll see that we have a template. Now, typically, you have a default template, and that's just a typical WordPress thing. With the update, they came up Fluent Community Frame and Fluent Community Full Width Frame. So I chose the full width one. And that is why it's showing up inside of the community, with the header and the column on the side, which is what I wanted. I wanted to keep this limited to only people who are logged in. And if somebody who was not logged in tried to go to that page, it would just take them back to the frame with no access to anything. So in other words, they can't see it. Whereas before, when this is just a default template, well, then anybody who knew the URL could go there and see what was going on. Anybody who knew my support ticket URL could go in there and see that. I'm still debating the pros and cons of whether this is better inside or outside of the framework, but for now, I wanted it inside, and that's why we have this. And that is really a lot of what I wanted to tell you, except for, there is one other thing I want to show you. If you look over here under Fluent Community, you've got these different options down here. This one, change community URL. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to allow you to change the slug. They do not recommend to change the URL of your portal if you have lots of content. I've changed mine stupidly, very stupidly, because I started off with community.suburbiapress.com, and then their default slug is portal. Okay. I thought, well, no, I'm starting a community, so I changed it to community. Well, it was a long URL, and I had community in there twice. That made no sense at all. Community.domain/community. Don't need to do that. If you haven't already started setting things up, you can change it without really worrying too much. And I checked with that on the WP Managed Ninja, and Jewel, the CEO for WP Managed Ninja, said, yeah, you haven't launched yet. You can go ahead and change it. It won't cause any problems. He was kind of right and kind of wrong. It did not cause any problems for Fluent Community, which is what he was thinking about. It did cause problems for a lot of my plugins, including my WP Managed Ninja plugins like FluentCRM Pro and Fluent Forms and Boards and Support, because they are set to register the license with your domain name. So when I changed the domain from community.suburbiapress.com to hub.suburbiapress.com, I broke my licenses for all of that. Not only did I break my licenses for those, but there's another one in here called Fluent SMTP. This is a really good one. You should have this whether you're running a community or not. And this basically handles sending transactional emails from WordPress, except when you change your domain name. Then it doesn't work and it doesn't send you any transactional emails. So because I changed my domain name, I logged out. I tried to log back in and I couldn't get in. I tried to reset my password and I'd never got the email telling me what my password reset was. That's because after I changed my subdomain name from community to hub, this stopped working. It broke my integration with Amazon Simple Email Services. So I could not get into my site at all, except for going to my host, which is xCloud Hosting. They have a magic login. That got me in. If it weren't for that, then I would have had to do all sorts of things with SFTP trying to get in and change things. But basically, I'm going to tell you that changing your subdomain name is going to break things. It also broke Stripe, which was a problem. Like I said, when I initially launched, I'd done my testing. I thought everything works fine. Changed the domain name, and then people started trying to pay me, $10 to get in here, and they were getting an API error. Well, I screwed up. I changed my subdomain name. I had to go back in and go through the whole integration process with Stripe again. So my advice is plan out your subdomain or your domain name well in advance and don't change it. Don't change the slug. Don't change anything. Plan it in advance. Now, when you're first starting, if you want to change the slug from portal to community or something like that, it doesn't hurt anything. But once you start adding on other plugins that might have licenses that use your domain name, or you integrate with Stripe or some other payment service that uses your domain name, or you integrate with an email service like Amazon's Simple Email Service that uses your domain name, don't make any changes from that point forward. Those are things that I wish I knew. That's why my launch was delayed. I screwed up. But you know what? We're working fine now. So once again, I'm going to invite you. If you want to join the Suburbia Press community, please come in. Right now, it's only $10 for a lifetime access. We're going to be talking about Fluent Community I seem to be getting people who want to know how to build it. I've also got a lot of things about onboarding inside of the community. In other words, when people get there, what do you want them to do? How do you make them feel welcome? So I've got that whole section that I showed you where I put the general stuff. There's a start here. There's a site tour. I've got a video that walks them through what they want, what they need to know about the area, how to customize their notifications or turn them off if they don't want them, all that other stuff. So those are some of the discussions we're having, and I would be happy if you joined us. I hope this was helpful to you. Thanks so much. As always, you're welcome to come join us at hub.suburbiapress.com, and I will see you again in the next video.